Eurasian Times, 4th of March 2023, over the next 5 years, China will train 5,000 security personnel from developing nations. How does China benefit, though? To defend its hegemonic interests, China is building local troops in the nations it has colonized or is trapped in a debt trap. China does not want to fall behind the security system in Asia that the West is guiding. To handle security issues in unconventional and digital spaces, it intends to build more platforms for communication and collaboration. Some include biosecurity, cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and emerging technologies, all intended to enhance governance capability in non-traditional security. China intends to educate 5,000 security personnel from developing nations over the next 5 years, according to a recent paper on Beijing's Global Security Initiative, GSI. The action will increase its influence in terms of worldwide security. Beijing's apparent alternative to the security system put forth by Western nations worldwide appears to be expanding its security initiative overseas. In retrospect, it was clear that President Xi Jinping had put forth a new security plan in April of last year at the Boao for Asia annual meeting. The Middle East, the Pacific Islands, and the Central Asian republics are the intended beneficiaries of the initiative to expand bilateral and multilateral training initiatives. Except for Central Asia, where the West could only manage its footprints after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the West has long increased its influence in these security areas. China feels that, as the dominant superpower in Asia, it bears primary responsibility for handling international security issues. The plan for training and exchange in non-traditional security fields, particularly anti-terrorism, showed Beijing felt an obligation to address global challenges, said Li Wei, an anti-terrorism expert at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, CISR. China's growing impact on developing nations that are debt-trapped. According to the article, China would promote increased communication and collaboration between military and police schools at the university level. This indicates that Beijing wants to increase its sway among the sizable student and officer populations in the region's developing nations, mainly through academic channels. It seeks to emphasize to the vast younger generation of military and police ranks in the developing nations of the Asian continent the Chinese ways and methods of successfully enforcing security against various crimes quite distinct from the traditional criminology known to us. China places equal importance on expanding its influence internationally through a less than transparent methodology intended to affect different social groups in developing nations. This would counter the common perception by anti-China forces that China engages in several secretive activities. President Xi announced that China would train 2,000 law enforcement officers from member nations of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, over the next 5 years and establish a training base focusing on counterterrorism at a summit of the Security Alliance led by China and Russia last September. How China addresses terrorism and counterterrorism differs from those recommended by the UN Human Rights Council. Whatever name we choose won't significantly alter how Beijing views the issue. China has performed it repeatedly. For instance, China has used its veto power to reject a joint proposal from the US and India to designate Pakistani citizens who are terrorists based in Pakistan. The draft motion was, however, unanimously approved by the SC's other members. China cited a technical problem with the resolution that no member of the SC had bothered to explain or acknowledge. The Chinese language lies. Security personnel are being trained to uphold Chinese legislation. The SCO member nations can be convinced to adopt China's definition of terrorism or anti-terrorism and associated methodology by training 2,000 law enforcement officers. China gives the impression that it is interested in promoting the definition and method set forth by the UN Human Rights Council because the curriculum of such academic training is not mentioned. As a result, the regimes in the member nations in question would not hesitate or express any reservations. However, the most critical issue is how skilled law enforcement personnel will act when assigned to field work. These new strategies are founded on the knowledge China has gained from similar cases elsewhere. China offered to teach 1,500 law enforcement and cybersecurity officials from some Arab states in December last year. Additionally, Beijing has assisted in enhancing the anti-riot skills of the Solomon Islands police force. 32 police agents from the Solomon Islands had already traveled to China for a month-long training program before that. China is aware that its approach to gaining influence abroad through publicly stated programs and thereby giving it the appearance of transparency is merely a cover for authorized intelligence gathering. Even if that were not the case, educating professionals by Maoist principles poses a grave danger to a democratic system of government. Stated China seeks to exert disproportionate influence in the Asian continent's developing nations. The anti-terrorism specialist Li consistently asserts that the training exercises were normal and aimed to address global threats that no nation could handle. Ironically, China poses the common threat and asserts that it is working to oppose the same policy, and the effort strengthened relations. It makes sense that it would use talent as a crucial resource to justify and legalize open spying. He did admit, though, that these initiatives might encourage improved ties between China and emerging nations. There are plenty of developing nations where China wishes to test transparent intelligence, both in quantity and population. It covers a sizable part of the planet. Since the Confucian Institutes have been revealed to be espionage hubs, China is experimenting with a new intelligence gathering strategy by portraying itself as transparent and harmless for the developing free and democratic world.